Enlightenment poets. During the Age of Reason, or the Age of the Enlightenment, middle classes also emerged as a force to reckon. So the objective of the literature is somehow narrowed down to the entertainment. Therefore, talking about poetry during this age is that it was mostly satirical, which was directed towards the public and literary figures of those times, and it included a lot of criticism and caustic mockery. And then there were a few or others who opted for the gentle irony. So, when we say satirical, what comes into your mind? Satirical is defined the way of criticizing people or ideas in a humorous way, especially in order to make a political point, like satirical cartoons or magazines. She was known for her satirical humor, a satiric puppet show that the mocked government. So the next is, let me introduce you the writers and poets during the Enlightenment period, or the following authors who were writing for an informed audience. First is Jonathan Swift. He was born on November 30, 1667 in Dublin, Ireland. He died on October 19, year 1745. He is an Anglo-Irish poet, satirist, essayist, and political pamphleteer. He is acknowledged as the greatest prose satirist in the history of English literature. He spent much of his early adult life in England before returning to Dublin to serve as a dean of St. Patrick's Cathedral, Dublin, for the last 30 years of his life. In addition, Jonathan Swift used the wit in the novel genre was remarkable and is appreciated till this date. In his Gulliver's Travels simply just move ahead and got itself established as a classic, wherein inviting trickery of the allegory in his sense of humor was how he commented on the 18th century society through his work. And here are the famous works of Jonathan Swift: A Modest Proposal, A Gulliver's Travels, A Tale of a Tub. So if you want to know more about Jonathan Swift, here are the following 5 facts about him. Jonathan Swift invented the girl's name Vanessa. The name Vanessa originated as Swift's pet name for his friend and lover, Esther Van Homree, who was over 20 years his junior. Swift wrote a poem, Cadenus and Vanessa, 1713, about Esther or Vanessa. Second, he was a cousin of John Dryden. Dryden reportedly remarked to his distant cousin, "Cousin Swift, you will never be a poet, sure enough. It would be in a prose, with such works, A Modest Proposal, A Tale of a Tub, and A Gulliver's Travels, that Swift would create his enduring legacy." Third, Swift coined the famous phrase "sweetness and light," first used by Swift when he was defending the classic against the modern in his essay Battle of the Books. Fourth, his novel Gulliver's Travels was a huge bestseller in its day, Swift's most famous book. Its full title was Travels into Several Remote Nations of the World, in 4 parts, by Lemuel Gulliver, first a sergeant, and then a captain of several ships. It was published anonymously in October year 1726. It was a resounding hit right from the start. The book proved that something of an instant bestseller. 10,000 copies were sold in the first 3 weeks. 5. He may have been the author of a 1722 essay called The Benefit of Farting Explained. He may also have been the author of treatise on human excrement under the pen name Dr. Shit. In truth, both pamphlets have been attributed to Swift, but whether he was definitely the author of them remains unknown. Next poet is Alexander Pope. He was born on May 21, year 1688 in London, England. He died on May 30, year 1744 in Twickenham near London. He is a poet, writer, translator, and satirist of the English Augustan period. He is one of the most epigrammatic of all English authors. Best known of his poems is the following: An Essay on Criticism, The Rape of the Lock. His famous poem is The Rape of the Lock, An Essay on Man, The Dunciad. In addition, Alexander Pope was regarded as one of the greatest poets of the period, controversial and as witty as Swift. And Voltaire, he popularized heroic couplet and easily transformed mundane settings into something grand. His The Dunciad was a scathing indictment of the English society. Next is Francois Marie Arouet, wherein his famous pen name is Voltaire. He was born on November 21, 1964 at Paris, Kingdom of France. He was died on May 30, 1778, age 83, at Paris, Kingdom of France. French writer, philosopher, poet, dramatist, historian, and polemicist of the French Enlightenment. He wrote more than 20,000 letters and 2,000 books and pamphlets. Voltaire was especially concerned with freedom of thought and expression. His most famous novel was Candide, in which he poked fun at all the religious ideas. He had a strong belief in religious tolerance and free speech. Tolerance means the acceptance of different beliefs and customs. Next is Thomas Gray. He was born on December 26, 1716, London, England. Died on July 30, 1771, age 54, at Cambridge, England. His notable works is Elegy Written in a Country Churchyard. He is an English poet, classical scholar, and professor at Pembroke College, Cambridge, best known for his poem Elegy Written in a Country Churchyard, which was published in 1751. Next is Oliver Goldsmith. Oliver Goldsmith was born on November 10, 1730 in Ireland. He died on April 4, 1774, age 43, in London, England. He graduated from Trinity College, Dublin, and studied medicine in Edinburgh, but never received a medical degree. He traveled to Europe in 1756 and eventually settled in London. He worked as a writer and was friends with the artistic and literary luminaries of the time, including Samuel Johnson, John Boswell, Sir Joshua Reynolds, and Edmund Burke. Edmund Burke. He is also the author of the essay collection, and here are the following: The Citizen of the World, which was published on 1762, The Vicar of the Wakefield, year 1766, The Good-Natured Man, year 1768, She Stoops to Conquer, 1773, The Poetry Collections Traveller, or A Prospect of Society, year 1764, An Elegy on the Death of a Mad Dog, year 1766, The Deserted Village, year 1770. In addition, Pope, Gray, and Goldsmith was deeply influenced by the humanism and their acceptance of enlightenment, which could be seen in their works, and then there were also a graveyard poets that talk increasingly about death and decay, and they dominated the poetic scene in London at that time. The pastoral influence of the earlier times also continued to dominate. So, when we say graveyard poets, it is a type of morbid poetry which lingers on human mortality, tombs, and burial grounds, popular in the pre-Romantic period of 18th century Britain. Graveyard poetry is the important because it discusses something that all readers can relate to, that everyone is eventually going to have to face their own mortality, and the graveyard poets did not shy away from this act. They address it head on. So, based on what I searched on Google, here are the following graveyard poets. First is Thomas Parnell, second William Cowper, and the rest Christopher Smart, James Macpherson, Robert Blair, William Collins, Thomas Chatterton, Thomas Wharton, Thomas Percy, Thomas Gray, and Oliver Goldsmith. The French Revolution marked the beginning of the end of the Enlightenment as the French Society in 1789, which was the classic example of the civil society drunk on their power. The sadism of French people towards each other was enough to horrify the entire Western world, and made them see what exactly they need to prevent in their own homelands. People were simply tired, and the ideas of social reform and a utopian, egalitarian society died down. So the key terms here is the Enlightenment gave way to a lot of progress. Science have moved forward, church was jeopardy, monarchs were no longer the rulers of divine right, and it made people aware. And then the Enlightenment ended when the French Revolution started in 1789.